So in this instance, we're going to use Python to pull some external data that's out of the web somewhere and recreate it for our use essentially within our Python file. So the data that we're going to use is going to be from the Australian Government's Bureau of Meteorology. So if you go to bom.gov.au, you'll reach this website here. And if you come up here to Queensland, and if you come down here under observation to Brisbane area latest observations, it'll take you to this list here. And this is just a stack of locations in and around the Greater Brisbane area. If you click on any one of these, it'll take you specifically to that particular location. So this is Brisbane itself. Now within here, you'll see that there's a whole stack of information, all date time stamped. Information such as temperature, such as relative humidity, etc., etc. Now the really handy thing to do with this data is of course that it's updated frequently, so it's a really good means of making sure that our data is constantly up to date, and as long as we can get our Python file working appropriately, then it should always pull the most recent data. So what we could do is build some form of scraper here that comes in and pulls this data out of the table and puts it into a format that makes a bit of sense. But quite handily, if you scroll right to the bottom here, it'll give you a couple of options in other formats, and one of them is JSON or JavaScript Object Notation format. If I click on that, I get this, which looks a lot scarier than what it is. Just here at this URL will be all of this data here represented in a JSON format. So what is that? Well, if I skip back here to W3 Schools, which is a great place for you to go if you want to deepen your knowledge about this, is a bit of information about what JSON data actually is and what it looks like. JSON data at its core is just effectively a name and a value. So you'll see that each of them is separated with, hey, here's a name, a key, in this case name is equal to John. If I scroll down a bit further, you'll see that it's usually represented, because it's a JavaScript object, with squiggle brackets around it. So if you extend out that idea into what we have with BOM, you'll just note one really key and important change, and that is that here within this key of name, and I have John within it, well, what the Bureau of Meteorology does here, and what's quite common, is that there's a subsequent data array in here as well, which is, if you like, another dictionary or another JSON object stored within that. So there's a couple of different layers here. So according to name, instead of this being John, it might be another layer within that's first name is equal to John. So what we have here is observations. That's our first key, and the value is everything that comes after that, right the way to the very bottom of this page, which, as you'll note, is quite a ridiculous amount of content. Now within that, within notice, is a whole set of other data within that as well. So there's notice, there's header, there's data. The real bit that I'm after is this part here to do with data. So what we want to do is we want to take this URL, pull the data out of it, and then see if we can interrogate it a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here to PyCharm, or whatever IDE you happen to be using, and I'm just going to go about creating a new Python file. And I'm going to call this BOM pull, because it's going to pull some data for me. First thing that we're going to need to do is import JSON, and to import JSON is just to pull in, hey, we're going to be interpreting JSON data here. The other bit that we need to use is requests, and I can enter this, but what I'm actually going to need to do is install this as well. Now within PyCharm you can go File, Settings, and Install as normal. I'm going to install it through the terminal, so I'm just going to go and open up a terminal here, and type in pip install requests. And when I hit enter in this instance, it's going to take a moment to install this particular package, which is requests. Think of requests as a means of linking Python with the broader web that's out there. So now when I go down and hit enter and start using this, it should hopefully pick up here that, hey, requests is available to us. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable called BOMData, and this is going to be requests.get. And requests in this instance is going to use this function here, get, to go and get some data from somewhere. This function is going to accept just one variable, and that's going to be the URL. So I'm going to skip back to here, select this URL, Control C to copy, go back to PyCharm, and inside inverted commas, I'm going to paste this URL. Now, what I can do is I can say print BOMData at this stage, and just go right click, run. And you'll see that that I get this response here of response 200, which means that, hey, I got a response and there's some data waiting for me. Now this doesn't really help me very much, but what I can do is I can then use JSON to parse this data and turn it into something that makes a bit more sense to me. So I'm going to leave that print bomb data here for now, but then I'm also going to say a bomb response, and I have to be careful that I don't end up with ridiculous names that I can't differentiate well, but we'll tidy this up shortly. JSON.loads, and we want to load the bomb data.text. So this is us saying, hey JSON, we want to use this function loads, and we want to pull in this data here, the bomb data, whatever text is there, and turn it into this new variable called bomb response. And now when I say print bomb response, and I go right click, run, you'll see that I get my initial response 200 as per this line here, and then underneath it I get all of my bomb data. So this is going to be whatever is the most recent data and up to date. And you'll see that it's quite crazy and ridiculous there, owing to the fact that it's just in raw JSON format. So what I want to do next is I want to make sure that I can actually do something useful with this. Firstly, I'm going to delete this print statement, and I'm going to delete that print statement because I'm not going to need those just yet. I'm going to do a little bit of tidying up. Well, what I want to do is I want to now delve down into this, and I want to pull up some of the data related to individual items within this. So I'm going to use key value pairs in this instance. And again, I could do this in just one or two lines or a couple of variables. I'm going to do it in a few more variables simply because then you'll hopefully see us as we delve down layer by layer. So I now have bomb data, which is the raw that comes out of here. I pass it into JSON, and now the next step that I'm going to use is I'm going to use a variable called bomber, which is going to be bomb response, but I'm going to put it inside brackets, and I want it to pull in what is in observations here. All right, so this is going to be whatever is in observations, and then I want to say print bomber. And now when I go right click run, you should see that I no longer get the response at the top. I just get the information that's here within observations. So what's the real difference here? Well, if I go about printing bomb response, so that is the original JSON data, versus once I've gone and selected one of the keys, that top key being observations, and hit run, you'll see that the first one gives me observations and all of the data that follows it. Well, now I've delved down one layer and I'm just taking, within this next one, bomber is just taking the stuff that is within observation. So if you like, I've trimmed this first bit off because I'm saying I don't care about what the name of it is. I obviously know what the name of it is. Go and get me just the data from within it. So we can step down layer by layer here. Now, quite handily, what I could do here is make another variable, bomber2, and make this bomb response. Now I'd make it bomber here, and I could pull in another bit here that might be, say, notice, or I might pull in the next bit down. So if I skip back to here, what I actually want here is the data. So I'm skipping this. Well, now there's three next layers, three keys next. I want to pull in the data. So what I could do is I could put in here data, and then instead of printing bomber1, I'm going to print bomber2. So this is me pulling down another layer of data. If I now go right click pull, it's going to pull down just the data here. So I'm getting one layer down. Quite handily though, I can actually do these two on one line. So I'm going to ditch that there, and I'm going to skip back to here. And whereas I have observations here, well, I'm now going to add an extra filter, and that's going to be data. I'm going to rename this back to just bomber. So this is doing exactly what I did before, where I pull down observations and then I pull down data. And I can go right click run, and it's going to print my original stuff, and then it's going to print just what's in the data. Now if we skip back into here, we can see what our data actually is. And you'll see that I have sort order 0, and this is one instance of data. And then I have sort instance 1, this is another instance of data. And if we go and review what this data is, you can see that it is based on a particular date time form. All right, so this is taken from the 2020, the 3rd, so that's the month of March. The 11th is the day at 800. Right, so at 0800 I should say, so at 8 o'clock. If I skip down here a bit further, I see similar, except that this is taken at 07300. Right, so I can see that this is separated by half-hour increments. Let's say I just want the most recent one. Well, what I might do here is skip down another layer. I'm going to say latest data is equal to bomber and 0. And the reason that I'm saying 0 here is because I want the first instance of this data. All right, so this first one. If I put down 1, then I would get whatever this item is here. If I put down 2, I would get this lot here from 7 o'clock. If I put down 3, then I'd get 6:30. Now, I can ditch these print statements here, because what I'm going to do is I'm just going to print the latest data. So now when I go right click, run bomb, this is just the most recent data. So again, I've gone down another layer here. Now, underneath this still doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me. So what I can do is I can just pull in some specific data here. So I might say, print the latest data, but just print me the name. If I go right click, run, it's just going to print the name. So this is, if you like, the final layer, because if I have a look down within my sort order here, my 0, so this item is my latest data. Well, within that I have these various keys, and there's one here that's name. Let's say I also want to get the current dew point. Well, I could say dew PT. Just make sure that you get this correct. So I'm going to copy and paste this line, and I'm going to make this dew PT, and go right click, run bomb. So this way I'm now pulling in just that data specific to that location here within Brisbane. So a lot of content there that we can go and get through just to make sure that we can get the specific data. But each time we're taking this data that's available to us and we're drilling down one layer at a time in each instance until we get to what we want.